so much of that emphasis is put around that positioning, and whether it's true positioning or it's a hook, but you got to have something. What is it, right? And it might be that you're the best at X service in Y city or region, right? It might just be that. You're great at PR and you work in this city or this state or whatever, and that's what you want to be known for. So that limits where you're going to probably hunt, that leads you with the content that you're going to create, with the relationships you're going to build. And I think you've got to have some intentionality there, even if it's not uber specific.
Hello, everyone. Welcome. I'm Lee McKnight Jr. and the VP of Sales for RSW US, outsourced business development for ad agencies of all types. And this is Cut to the Chase. It's our interview series that delivers brief but impactful views from ad agency principals on growth strategies and the challenges that come with it in today's weird, evolving landscape. Jason Therrien, CEO of ThunderTech. Welcome. How are you?
Thank you, Lee. I am doing fantastic. I appreciate the opportunity to chat.
Yeah, man. So we've talked. We were just talking offline here a couple of times in person. I'm like, I need to have him on the next episode. So thanks for agreeing. And so let's start off just by saying, first of all, HQ of ThunderTech is in Cleveland, correct? And offices in Detroit and Chicago as well?
Yeah, and shortly in Toledo too. So we're
excellent.
Very friendly to the Great Lakes, but we're coast to coast. But yeah, right. The Great Lakes is home.
Oh, that's awesome. Congratulations on the new office. That's great. It is a tradition that I have to ask you a question that I ask everyone in a slightly different form, sort of as an icebreaker. A little starter question to get things rolling. Now, I don't know if you're aware. I mean, the whole world is aware, I think. But NSYNC, the band, is back. The whole world celebrates, obviously. But the question for you is, would you rather see the reformed NSYNC on tour 12 nights in a row or answer an RFP?
Oh, how big's the RFP?
Oh, wait, that's not fair. You can't ask that. Yeah, it's okay. It's I don't know if it's life-changing.
Yeah, 12 nights though. That's 12 nights in a row. That I would probably rather do an RFP. I'd rather do a government RFP than listen to that 12 nights in a row. But if it was one night, I probably would have answered that.
NSYNC. Word.
You could suck it up. Yeah, I don't know if I could do one night, but it depends. Are we in a suite? Are there free tickets? Do I have earplugs? Anyway, good. Okay, well that's kind of where I thought you'd go, but now that we've broken the ice, yes. Tell us a little bit about. So you founded the agency in '99.
Yeah, last century, just kind of crazy. And
congratulations, first of all.
Thank you.
It's awesome. I mean, tell us about the path there. Why you decided to kind of start the agency?
Well, I know some of your visitor or your viewers can probably relate to this. I felt really old with our intern class this summer when I started giving some of the history and mentioned dial-up. And
oh my!
And I
blank stares or
nobody knew what dial-up was, and it was because they were all born after that, right? They were all 18 to 21-year-olds, and.
Right.
Like, wow, I'm going to take that out of my spiel, my history spiel from now on. Right. It's been just an absolutely fascinating, amazing ride on many levels to just watch the change in marketing and technology, in media, communications, and then layer that over with our industry, the agency models shifting and changing, just so much. Has kept evolving over time, and that drives me. I'm not someone that shies away from that change, but we stayed at it, So there's not been any hard right turns over the years. We just keep evolving and keep up with it. We're clearly not doing anything for dial-up anymore.
Right. I mean, when you started it, was that I don't want to be too lofty here. I don't want to say was it a dream of yours, but Was that always kind of the intention?
I was always interested in business. I
Yeah,
worked in various family businesses over the years. I was drawn to entrepreneurs as a kid, watching parents and neighbors and whoever. It was like, oh, that's an option,
sure.
and that appealed to me. And so I was the kid running the lemonade stand and the lawn mowing business and hustling whatever
Nice.
I could hustle. Set up a baseball card shop in our basement at one point.
Oh,
Like all sorts of weird stuff. But it
yeah,
was
yeah, that's
fun. It was
cool.
interesting. And my brother and I had a lot of good time. Now he's actually an entrepreneur running another business. But
Nice.
yeah, so that was, I think, opened my eyes to it. It wasn't that I had to do it, but a lot of opportunities aligned during that time period of late '90s that allowed me to try it.
Okay, great. And you know, the times that we've talked, I can't believe I haven't asked this, but where does the name come from?
So I actually started the business while I was in college.
Okay. Oh, cool.
Long story there, but yeah, I just raised my hand for a lot of opportunities. I was the youngest guy in the room, so therefore I must know something about the internet in the '90s, and that was not the case. But I was happy to be employed, so I learned real quick. And as that kept going, more business started coming to me, referrals, et cetera. I figured I better have something of a name,
Yeah,
and
sure.
couldn't afford a creative director yet, so it was just me and my brain. And I was a much bigger young man back then. I played fullback in college, and
Yeah, we're going to get to that.
my nickname was Thunder, so
That's awesome.
it it
Can I
stuck.
call you that from here on out?
You can call me whatever you want, Lee. This is your show, remember?
I won't. I won't do that. That's cool though.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's
So
awesome. Okay.
I've addressed, do we change the name over time, but it's stuck and it
Yeah.
works. I like that it's not my last name. It's got a little bit of me, but it's also this feeling of, building a boom for brands, and
Yeah.
it's worked. So you run with it.
Yeah. I've always, the very first episode of this we did, a friend of mine starting a new agency after a long career at another one and talked about naming. And I always think it's, when it's something that is personal to you in that sense, and to your point, and it's fine if it's your last name, whatever. But I think that's a cool story. So yeah, I wouldn't ever think about changing it. But yeah, I just realized I'd never actually asked you. So you all, when I look at your site and folks that'll go there, we'll certainly have the links. But you're an integrated agency is the descriptor there, correct? I mean, what does that?
Mhm.
This could be the whole conversation if we wanted, I realize, but what does that look like today in terms of
Yeah.
services? Yeah,
Well, so because I came at this from a general business background, I just happened to start with the web.
right.
That was the next question, was that how is it all this going to work together? You've got, time catalogs and maybe a TV commercial, and so all these other things floating around with brands, and then you had this random, web project that you hired the kid to do. Like, why don't these things work together? And I understood it very early on that these things needed to. Now, of course, that is pretty common these days,
Sure.
and I think a lot of agencies call themselves integrated, but like we started there from the beginning. And what we also mean by that is obviously the breadth and depth of services that we offer, as well as one measure that I try to tout for ourselves is saying is one thing, operationally, it's a whole different thing. So you look at our
Right.
overhead structure, our teams, thus our payrolls, our overhead is about equal per discipline. So
Okay.
so ThunderTech can be truly a bit more neutral when we look at an opportunity or an issue, so an issue that needs solving for a client, to say we got a lot of tools in the belt. Which ones should we pull out for this?
Yeah.
Where some places don't have that luxury, and they have 90% of their overhead and really one or two services, and that's really what they need to push.
Interesting. I like that. So let's keep going with that for a second because so from the ThunderTech LinkedIn page, and I'll quote it here. It's integrated marketing strategies for clients primarily in the middle market to the Fortune 500. agencies can struggle with that horizontal positioning,
Yep.
where they're working across multiple verticals. Obviously, you all have done well with that. And on your site, you taught growing brands in every industry. Was that a conscious choice, from the outset versus, focusing in on some key verticals?
Yeah, we have several key verticals where we hunt after from a business development perspective.
Okay,
From an inbound, placement, they can look at the site and decide if there's enough of what they do to make that inbound opportunity worthwhile for them, and then we can also suss it out with
okay,
them. But we do hunt in a few verticals. Day one, I needed to be much more open, so
sure,
took
right,
a view of the landscape around me. And, being in the Midwest, we have a lot of industry here.
sure,
And so that B2B, that big, broad industrial category is something we have excelled at from day one.
okay,
Over the years, though, we've balanced out that portfolio to be more 50-50 with B2B and B2C work. And we manage it like you would manage your investment portfolio. Like,
okay.
how diversified are we? Where's the client concentrations? What industries? What are the winds of change telling us? And we're going through that right now, frankly, with the economy.
Yeah,
I mean, you know this from all your research, right?
right.
There are sectors that are hurting. So we're able to have some levers to push and pull based on those decisions.
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting, and I'll take it a step further because I was going to ask you, and you answer this to an extent in terms of from a business development standpoint. Then how do you handle that? And you just mentioned kind of we had that inbound piece, but then there are some verticals where you have a story to tell, you have the experience, but agencies do struggle with that when they're going horizontally focused. Not all the time, but often in terms of kind of trying to be all things to all people. What advice would you give an agency that may be kind of struggling with the horizontal positioning and how to focus?
That's an interesting question. I think, so much of that emphasis is put it around that positioning, and whether it's
Yeah,
true positioning or it's a hook, but you got to have something. What is it, right? And it might be that you're the best at X service in Y city or region, right? It might just be
sure.
that. You're great at PR and you work in this city or this state or whatever, and that's what you want to be known for. So that limits where you're going to probably hunt. That leads you with the content that you're going to create, with the relationships you're going to build. And I think you've got to have some intentionality there,
Yeah,
even if it's not uber specific.
yeah, I love that. And I'm going to pull that quote, and that's going to be the first main quote because it's so true. And I think agencies will hear from like consultants, and you have to specialize, and it gets hammered home. And I think sometimes what's not defined clearly enough, because I understand why agencies would push back at that sometimes, because I had some during the pandemic that would say, look, if we hadn't been more generalist, we might not have made it. So it's like, I can't argue with that. But at the same time, I love the way you put that because you don't have to specialize in pharma, for example, or whatever it might be. Some of those examples you gave, the intentionality is what I liked about part of your description there, because you do have to have some kind of hook, for lack of a better word. And that hook doesn't just have to be a vertical. So I think that's a great answer. I really like it.
Yeah.
Something else kind of along the same path, pulling from your site again, and I'm going to do another quote if I may, but we also believe that to be a true integrated marketing partner, we must innovate our services, help clients accelerate through changing times, which you just mentioned. And that's why we're an agency that is a practitioner. So I really like that, the practitioner language. I mean, tell me what that looks like in practice, why you singled in on that word.
Yeah, I think, to be honest, I'm kind of amazed. Well, one, we don't use that phrase enough, so thank you for pulling that out.
Okay.
And two, I'm amazed more agencies, and frankly, don't do it, and brands don't measure their agencies by it.
Okay.
It always struck me, and again, times have changed a little bit, but the agencies that would sell something like social media, which is very public facing, you could go look at their social presence, and it was zip. You're
Great
like, well,
point.
how are they supposed to do that for us,
Right.
right?
Yeah.
And I get the cobbler's children discussion, believe me, but I think that it's at least an outward expression, number one, to the market that you're capable of doing those things because you
Sure.
can do them themselves. that you are serious about them because you can hopefully do them well and have trained your folks. Being a practitioner allows us to test on ourselves versus our clients.
Great
So
point.
we talk about that, like, we are our own R&D lab. We understand the algorithms because we're posting constantly for ourselves. We don't have to learn or have as steep of a learning curve on you as a client
Yeah.
because we're doing A, B, and C.
Interesting. Yeah, I really like that a lot. And that goes along with really kind of treating yourself as a client in that respect. So I like the practitioner language a lot. And, this is a nice segue into my next question, which was in terms of content. In these interviews, I always like to see, what are the agencies doing? And kudos to you all because you've got some nice thought leadership driven content. We're going to post that here where agencies, if you want an example of kind of how to do it. And something else that I really liked was that not only are you writing some of that content, but you have at least 2 or 3 others, I believe, and maybe more. Um, how is that process kind of set up? And I know not to get too detailed, but do you have kind of editorial calendars in place months out, or how does that work?
Yeah, you nailed it before. It's like treating ourselves like a client. Now, we're a tough client. We're not always most responsive clients. Or sometimes we're demanding clients,
Right.
depending on the contact. But yeah, you've got to treat it with that same seriousness that you would for any brands that are paying you,
Yeah.
because we've taken that long view again from building an inbound machine that you've got to be out there, and even if it doesn't draw the lead, there's still so much research available, and I do believe brands are looking a little deeper at their agency partners or prospective agency partners
Okay.
at what are you putting out there for them to choose to judge you by. So yes, content calendars. We have tentpole types of content that we
Okay.
use. We put out a trends publication for now, gosh, going over a decade, at
Excellent.
least twice a year.
Okay.
It's evolved. It used to be an event where we presented trends to certain local markets.
Okay.
And then as we grew, right, and our footprint geographically grew, we turned it into a mailer, an actual magazine.
Nice.
And then COVID hit and nobody's getting mail at work anymore.
Yeah.
So we doubled down more digitally. And now it's funny, we're actually getting prods from certain clients and prospects like, I haven't gotten that mailer in a while.
Great
So
point.
we're going to bring some of the mailer back.
Yeah. Yeah. It's interesting because it's part of our, not to RSW commercial, but that is, and during COVID, part of what we do is our process. One of those channels is mails, and it's a little old school, but it's funny you say that because it is uncluttered, and agencies watching. If you're not doing it, give it a test because it absolutely works.
Yeah.
So
And,
it's interesting.
and I will tell you, Lee, I really respect that you got, I've seen that as part of your spiel over time. And that is something, again, it's not sexy, but if
Yeah.
it works, it works.
Yeah. Right.
Who
Right. Right.
cares, right? You're looking for that outcome. I care less about which channel it's going through.
Exactly, exactly. And I couldn't agree with you more on that. But I think as far as sticking on content a little bit longer, I'll talk to agencies and I understand sort of the frustration of, well, how often this whole thing is, how often do we do this? And what I like about what you all are doing, you can correct me here, but it looked like generally going back 2 or 3 months, you're posting like 3 or 4 times a month. And if I missed something there, let me know. But I mean, I'm impressed you're doing it that often. I think, agencies 1 to 2 even a month, if you're using that content at least 5 different ways, that's okay too. Agencies get overwhelmed, right? I guess is my point, and thinking that we got to post 3 times a week. It's like you don't. If you can, great. But I thought with that cadence that you all have, is that generally what you kind of try to keep up with?
Yeah, that's a slow month,
Oh, it is.
to be
Okay.
honest.
Okay.
Yeah. So
Nice.
I, we don't need to throw everything against the wall,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
But I do think agencies are usually their worst critics with their own content, their own
Right.
case
I agree.
studies. I mean, again, I'm speaking to the choir here, but sometimes you just got to get it out there.
Yeah.
And it is amazing because we're all talking to, even if you're really narrowed into a specific category, there's all levels of sophistication, right? And some just want the basics and they're going to breeze through and look
Yes.
for a nugget. Others want the white paper and just want to spend an hour reading something. That's not a lot of people, but there are some, right? So you have that spectrum
Yeah.
of types. But that's where it can just be so overthought. You just got to get some of this stuff out.
Yeah.
We use a lot of hacks that we use for our clients too. Have you heard of the acronym COPE when it comes to content
I
marketing?
would like to say I have, but no.
I love it. It's create once, publish everywhere.
Oh yeah, okay, nice.
COPE.
Yeah, we use a version of that, but I that's much more succinct. I like it. That's cool. I'm
So
stealing that from you.
go for it. It's not trademarked. So I'm sure I took it from somebody else.
Yeah.
So
No,
it's
it is, and that's great. I think it's yeah, it's a great content. Just this is what we got to think about every time we're doing this.
that idea, just broadly speaking, has helped us think through how to leverage the investment in content
Nice.
and get a multiplier effect out of it, right? So if you do one of those magazines, right, those are big undertakings, but
Yes.
every article should be a blog.
Yeah,
You
absolutely.
know, that should be an audio portion too. That can be a artifact that we use for speaking engagements,
Yeah,
on and on and on. So, it's like, well, you just wrote it once. If you give up after that, it's frankly, you're just not getting as much out of your investment as you
totally.
should.
Couldn't agree more. And I think, overarching just as far as content, what we try when I talk to agencies, is, what this, if nothing else, what this is doing for you is showing prospects, and you got to work to get it in front of them in different ways. But you need to show them what it's like to work with you before you ever actually do through your thinking. And when you have more of those thought leadership type posts, they don't all have to be every single time, but I think most of the time that's going to get you somewhere. And I think it takes some time. But so kudos to you all for doing that. And it leads into,
Thank you.
I want to go into work from home, but this is content. I took, if I may, another quote, a post that you had around this. And I thought it was really a thoughtful piece. And so the quote here is, and you said, one of the current business topics I find fascinating is the giant sociological experiment that we are all participating in at work, from a standard 5-day office approach pre-pandemic to then evolving to a work from anywhere with flex time approach, keeping offices open while holding minimum expectations for in-person interactions, and all without mandates. So obviously, outside of our industry, of course, as well, every business to an extent is struggling with this. For agencies watching, how is this approach working for you all, and what advice would you give to other agency founders and owners?
Well, I think there's two big pieces. One is the soundbite. I think you've got to pick a lane
Yeah,
between agencies and certainly clients on our side. You pick it and articulate it, and understand what you're getting into, right? Because if you want people at the office 5 days a week
yeah,
and no one leaves till 5 on Fridays, right? There's repercussions now.
yeah,
It doesn't mean you can't find people, but your pool's going to look a little different,
yeah.
right? So own it, be unapologetic about it.
Okay.
The bigger piece there, I think, for ThunderTech is that we watch the trends, and it's like, well, how hard do you want to fight against the trends? And where is the world going?
Yeah,
So this has been a crazy just journey for me personally, because this is not how I love to work. I'm very extroverted. I
yeah.
feed off of people. And it wasn't until the pandemic I realized, like, not everybody's Jason, right? That
Because I'm that way
I got a
too.
lot of
Yeah,
yeah, I got a lot of deep thinkers. I got a lot of introverts that I didn't realize how uncomfortable they were every day,
yeah,
and are flourishing in their craft, whatever it may be, at home. And that's, again, I'm broad
sure, of course.
brushstroking all
Yes,
this, but I think when we start to look back on this more, like if you're in an industry and you got to be there because your tools are there, whatever,
yeah,
like fine, that's what it
of
is.
course.
But in the professional services space, most professional services can be done from
Yeah,
anywhere. And I think especially in the creative field, that those types of people love that
yeah,
flexibility. Love. And so again, we decided, hey, we're going to go with an all the above strategy. We kept all our offices
okay,
open. When people do come in, we say, listen, it's usually a Wednesday that minimally, so it's not spread out. Nobody's
yeah, yeah,
here. we have probably 10% of our folks are pretty hardcore 4 or 5 day a
Okay.
weekers, and they like getting out of their home. So there's an office, there's a desk, there's, all this is there. The coffee's on, enjoy
Right.
yourself. Others will come in just when they need
Okay.
to. And our retention has been
Oh,
fantastic.
excellent. That's great.
We watch the productivity numbers, we watch a lot of other pieces. Our management team is also very direct. When they see somebody slipping or they see that there's more opportunity for them to learn, to build relationships, they are nudging them back into those one-to-one in-person
Okay.
opportunities. And yeah, it's a tightrope. It's a work in
It
progress.
is.
You can make a whole probably another hour with me talking to you on this, but I'll leave it
Yeah,
there.
and we're going to link to that post because I think agency owners and everyone's dealing with it in some shape or form, and some are seem to be more where you are, and like we're feeling good about it. Others I've heard not so much. So I thought your post was really sound, and I encourage folks to go in the description and we'll get there.
Thank you.
Absolutely. And so a couple more questions. Now, we mentioned this offline as well, that this is our first Ohio-based agency interview. We are ourselves in Cincinnati here. It's awesome. But a couple of things I wanted to mention. First, so I saw that you're on the Destination Cleveland board and have been for 12 plus years. Yeah, that's obviously that's important to you. Tell us about that a little bit.
Yeah, so giving back is something that just kind of I think in my DNA, and I watched my parents do it. I'm big believer in making your communities a better place. So it's not just Cleveland. We give back a lot in all the other
Sure.
markets that we're in Detroit and Toledo and Chicago, because we want to walk the talk. If we're there, are you an interloper? Or are you actually, we try to demonstrate we're trying to put down roots in some of these
Yeah.
regions. And I think an easy way to start is just by giving back. So yeah, Destination Cleveland was a fascinating one because we were doing work in the destination
Okay.
category, and that's one of those sectors that ThunderTech goes after, the broad category. And when you have the CVB DMO segments in there, that's
Right.
another industry type that's going through a lot of change.
Yeah.
And I was asked by a new CEO about a dozen years ago to join the board, and I promised them I would be no wallflower, and if that were okay,
Okay.
come on. And it has been an amazing two-way street because it's not every day you get to rebrand a
Right.
city, and then hold a political convention, which is one of the most televised events in the world. Uh,
Cool.
NBA and MLB All-Star games, NFL draft, build a new convention center, build a new hotel. I
Wow.
mean,
Yeah.
we got to experience a lot as an organization, and it was also formative to me and ThunderTech for what we do outside of the region in that category, to actually be on boots on the ground, understand what our clients are going through a little more
Yeah. That's
authentically.
excellent. That's very cool. And I wanted to stay with this thread as far as Ohio, but saw you're also on the board of John Carroll University, and you touched on this already. So you're an alum. And I was going to
Yes.
ask what position, because I saw that LinkedIn post not too many weeks ago here, I believe, where you were talking about that and as a former player. So you were fullback.
Yes,
Wow.
sir.
Okay, that's
Yeah.
awesome. And John Carroll in Ohio, and
Correct.
it's in Cleveland.
Yeah, east side of
Yeah.
Cleveland. It's a Jesuit university. Didn't know much about it. Was ready to go out of state,
How
and
cool. Yeah.
on a whim, my dad said, "Let's go visit." They got a good business school I've heard about, and fell in love immediately. Got to get a great
Yeah.
degree. Played sports. Started the
Yeah.
business in one of the dorm rooms there. I mean, so I owe a lot to that place, and it was easy to say yes when they asked
Okay,
me
so I
to
was going
join
to
the
ask you, so
board.
that's how that happened. They asked you to join, and I mean, like you aren't doing enough. I mean, it's pretty impressive. But yeah, so I thought it was interesting when I saw on your LinkedIn that you had some playing time there as well as being on the board. It's pretty cool. All
Yeah.
right, one last question for you, because we do send this out. Not only this is for 8 other agencies, right, and their teams, but it also goes out to marketers from our sister company, Agency Search. So a question along those lines, and that is, if you could give one piece of advice to marketers or to prospective clients to make the agency relationship more effective, what would it be? It's not a hard question, is it?
Yeah,
I
no,
know.
very, very succinct. I think that in general, to stay as broad, I would also answer this. It works both ways from the marketer and the
Fair.
agency. It's something that our head of client services preaches a lot. And he actually uses as part of his hiring with account services and project management teams under him. He asked all the time about, do you care and are you curious?
Okay.
And I think that is a two-way street too, that I think some of the best relationships I've seen over the years is that the brand side will care enough to go deeper, make that time to go deeper, and are curious to ask more, ask beyond their four walls to see what else are you guys working on and
Yeah.
why and what could I be learning from, all that type of curiosity, because there's nuggets they can be pulling for their own purposes, professionally or for their, the brand or their marketing department.
Sure.
And so, yeah, making that time and just asking questions. Asking questions is such a beautiful art.
Agreed.
Encourage that.
Awesome. Jason Therrien, Thunder Tech, thank you so much for being on. This has been great. Enjoy the rest of the week in Ohio.
Yeah. Thank you, Lee, and thank you for what you do for the industry. Your content
Oh,
is
I really
amazing,
appreciate
and
it.
I followed it and respect it for a
Thank
long
you so
time.
much.
So I'm sure your viewers are already doing that, but if they haven't, it's a gift to the
Oh, thank you.
industry as well, and
Thanks for
I
the shout
know it
out.
serves you well.
Awesome.
So
Really appreciate it.
thank you, Lee.
Absolutely. All right, Jason. Thanks again. Bye.